Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So when we are assessing something, we assess it on the basis of the symptoms that it has. Just like a doctor, when a doctor looks at a patient, he first asks you, what are the symptoms? So in assessing life as well, for diagnosing and trying to understand that when someone is in a certain state and a certain sense of being, then there's certain symptoms that come with that. And that symptoms then is as a result of that person being connected in that state. So as we are assessing life and trying to understand life, we see that there are certain symptoms. For one who is depressed, the face will have certain symptoms, the voice will have certain symptoms, the posture will have certain symptoms, and the movement will have certain symptoms. So just like that, if you're assessing spiritual life, how can you assess, how can you observe if someone is actually in that divine consciousness? So yesterday Krishna was telling Arjuna that this divine consciousness, samadhi, the state of being, that one can exist in this material world and not be affected because he's connected on the spiritual platform. And all this while, Arjuna was hearing and very attentively, because he wants an answer to his problems and he knows that Krishna can give him an answer. So all these verses that we've been going through thus far, Arjuna has been hearing very, very attentively. And in today's verse 54, he finally asks a question. So what is that question? Let's see. Bhagavad Gita 2.54. Arjuna uvacha stitapragya ka bhashasa samadhistasya keshava stitadir kim prabhasheta kim asita brajeta kim. Translation. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? Wow! What an amazing question. How to know? How to know that that person is actually connected on the spiritual platform? And for Arjuna, this is the most important thing right now, because he's been hearing Krishna all the while. He's been hearing all the advice. But all of a sudden, Krishna spoke about something that struck a chord with Arjuna. And what is that? He spoke to Arjuna and he mentioned, Arjuna, there is a certain state of being where you won't experience any suffering and pain anymore from the outside world. And Arjuna goes, Oh Krishna, tell me more about that, because that's my problem right now. I'm in this situation where I have to make a choice about fighting or not, and it's a difficult choice. And if you can suggest to me something, where I can alleviate my suffering, where I don't have to be in this trauma anymore, that's what I want. I want an answer to solve my problem right now. However, Krishna is more tricky, more smarter than that. He knows this is what Arjuna wants, but he's starting off with a little sweet. And he's saying, Arjuna, there is something you can do where you won't be disturbed by this fighting anymore. And Arjuna goes, oh, what's that? Because I thought of everything and I can't figure out anything. You thought of something, Krishna? What's that? And Krishna says, Arjuna, it's not as simple as that. You have to be in a certain state. That means you'll have to make certain changes within yourself. You have to change your mindset. You have to change the way you're thinking about the world. And in that state, then, you experience the world differently. So your experience of the world is based on your state. That means your current state will give you the symptoms. And right now, your symptoms are distress, difficulty, confusion. You don't want to fight. Your mind is disturbing you, trauma, all these things that you're experiencing. This is a result or the symptoms of your state. And the state of your mind right now, It's much to be desired. But if you change your state, change your mindset, and as you gradually do that as a practice, it becomes a lifestyle. And once it becomes a lifestyle, then it becomes divine consciousness. And that's what Arjuna is asking about today. How does one develop it to such a point where he can live in this world, be in this world, and not be disturbed by the external influences? Let's see Arjuna's questions further. He asks here, how does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? So there's 4 specific things Arjuna wants to know about. That as a result of that state of being, the sthita pragya, sthita pragya ka bhasha sa samadhi stasya keshava sthita dir kim prabhaseta kim aseta vrajeta kim. That sthita pragya. So you see the development of our dhira, of our old friend, the dhira. So it's that same consciousness of being dhira. That dhira consciousness is the symptom of this level. So that dhira consciousness, the symptoms of that was at the level of the body. Now the consciousness of sthita pragya, the consciousness at the level of the soul, which is giving the symptoms at the level of the mind. So as the process of Buddhi Yoga is unfolding as a teaching by Krishna, he is now teaching Arjuna how to connect from the soul level, sthita pragya. The symptoms will then manifest through his mind, which will give him an experience of being indifferent. So you remember, these are the points we were covering over the past few verses. This is the next level in our psychological development, in our mental strength to address ourselves at hridayadolabhya, the weakness of heart. So the gradual development from dhira now is culminated on the external platform as sthita pragya, the one who is indifferent to the outside world. How does he develop that state? This is Arjuna's question, and he's asking it in 4 different levels. Sthita pragya ka bhasha. Sir, what is his bhasha? What is his language? Bhasha means language. Ka bhasha sa. What is his language? Sthita pragya ka bhasha sa. Samadhi stasya keshava. Oh Keshava, how does he stay? How does he develop that samadhi state of consciousness? Wow. Can you imagine if you could be in samadhi all the time in the external world? Samadhi is an internal thing, but it manifests in the external world as indifference. Because the inner development is samadhi, the external result is sthita pragya, or indifference to the material world. And how is that samadhi or divine consciousness achieved? By the connection of devotional service to the spiritual platform through the process of Krishna consciousness or the yoga of bhakti. So Arjuna's inquiry then, Kim asita brajeta kim? How does he sit? Kim asita brajeta kim? Braja means to move or to go. Kim asita brajeta kim? How does he walk? How does he move? Means how does he exist in the outside world? How does he sit? Means how is he situated within himself? So how is he situated within? How is he situated without? What are the symptoms of that? Kim asita, how is he situated within? Brajeta kim, how does he move about in the outside world? So this is the foundation that if one wants to be resilient, indifferent to the outside, then one has to be in samadhi, divine consciousness. And how does one achieve that? By connecting on the spiritual platform through devotional service. So he starts this beautiful purport here. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation. So everything has a diagnosis. Everything has symptoms. That when one is in a certain state of being, then he exhibits and manifests certain symptoms. One simple one is simply by watching one's face. If you look at me, if I move my head like that, immediately I'm lower than the eye level, right? This is eye level. If I move my head like that, you can immediately, if I stay in that state, then immediately you can feel, oh, this something is wrong with him. He's not feeling so confident. But if I immediately pick my eye level to that, which is just a slight difference, immediately you can feel there's more confidence. So you see, there's symptoms of everything. So when you're looking at someone, the person doesn't have to speak, but the body language is speaking volumes. Because the body also has a bhasha. The body also has language. And that you can't deny. It shows in the body, it shows in the face, it shows in the eyes that there's something deeper going on here. So when one looks at a person, you can immediately understand, oh, this I think is what's going on here. Although he's saying that, but his body is saying this. So you can immediately figure that out. So just like that, when one is in a certain divine state, when one is in that samadhi stasya Keshava, oh Keshava, what is that state of samadhi? Tell me. Arjuna wants to know, because he feels if he gets into that state, then the outer world won't trouble him. That trauma that he's facing now won't trouble him. But he doesn't know it's a gradual development. It first starts with step-by-step assessment, and it falls into these 4 categories. So Arjuna wants to know 4 things. How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? Now those 4 things as a process becomes, how does he speak? What is the confidence in which he speaks? What is the way in which he carries himself? And what is his language? What is the process by which he carries himself? What is the way, his choice of words? What is the levels of confidence about life that he's exhibiting? And kim aseta brajeta kim, how does he sit? How is he situated internally? And rajeta kim, how does he manifest that externally? So how are you situated within yourself, and how are you manifesting that indifference on the outer world? So these are the 4 things Arjuna wants to know. And Krishna is teaching him the science of life, and is using the manual of the Bhagavad Gita to do that. So he goes on. Similarly, one who is Krishna conscious has his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. So when one is in that divine state of samadhi or Krishna consciousness, or one is connected on that spiritual platform, there's a certain way in which he walks. There's a swagger. There's a certain way in which he walks. There's a certain way in which he talks. There's a certain language that he uses. There's a certain way in which he carries himself. And that's immediately noticed by the external world, because that is what people are saying. How are you indifferent like this? How did you develop this quality? This is what I want. He has a certain demeanor about him. And this is very attractive. This becomes attractive. Why is that? Because his mind is set into indifference. And how is his mind set into indifference? Because his Sthitta Pragya is connected, is in samadhi from the spiritual platform. And we know this is the tradition of the Aryan culture. So this Aryan culture, by which the process of self-realization is its primary focus, is a culture teaching one how to be in samadhi, how to be Sthita Pragya, how to be in this world and be indifferent to everything outside. Wouldn't that be an amazing state of being? This is what is being taught by Krishna right now. So Prabhupada goes on describing symptoms and how to recognize symptoms of different states. So he goes on. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a diseased man has his symptoms by which he is known as diseased, or as a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. So everything has symptoms. A sick man has his symptoms, a wealthy man has his symptoms, and the confidence or the way, the body posture, and you know when somebody is confident of his wealth. And as well. So you see the body posture is different. So the symptoms of confidence is coming from the state that that person is in. And that state is a result of where they're connected at the level of the soul. Sthita pragya. So we're seeing that as we're studying a spiritual person, that they're exhibiting indifference, that they're exhibiting this amazing divine consciousness, this amazing state of being, because they are sthita pragya, connected at the level of the soul. He goes on, one can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is the manual to life. And from this, and this is the manual that the Aryan culture used in order to become self-realized, in order to practice the process of self-realization. And this is the same teaching Krishna is sharing with us here today. So out of these 4 symptoms that Arjuna has asked, which one is the most important? Let's start there. So he describes here, most important is how a man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. So how does he speak? Does he speak with confidence? Does he speak with realization? Does he speak with understanding of life, of matter and spirit? Remember the definition of Dhira, that he studies matter, he studies spirit, he studies nature, he studies the soul, he studies the super soul. So this is the symptoms of one who's Dhira. So after studying, then how will you speak? Because now you'll speak as a man in knowledge. So yesterday we heard the culture of knowledge. One is developing a culture of knowledge. So how does he speak now, having assessed and assimilated all this information? Knowledge is just information until it's assimilated at the level of practice. Then it becomes realization. Otherwise, information, we can Google it, right? But realizations, you can't Google that. Google realizations means it's coming as a symptom of connecting to the soul. Pratyaksha vargamam dharmam. Rajavidya rajaguyam pavitram idam uttamam. Pratyaksha vargamam dharmam. Susukam kartam avyayam. That this is the king of knowledge, Arjun. That this is the king of knowledge. It's the king of education. Rajavidya rajaguyam. It's most secret. Pavitram idam uttamam. It's most pure knowledge. And what can it do? Pratyaksha vargamam dharmam. Susukam kartam avyayam. It gives direct perception of the self through realization. Not through information. Through realization. And susukam kartam avyayam. It's joyfully performed. That if one is actually connected at the level of the soul, the person becomes joyful. He becomes jolly. And that's what we want. Can you imagine if we always can be in a state of jolly? That's so amazing that somebody can be in that state all the time. This is proof that that person is connected at the level of samadhi. That is sthita pragya. So he goes on. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. And certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. Yes, so people can say many things, people can talk about many things, but this is all information. They Googled it. You can even speak about many things if you Google it. But realization about life, that doesn't come from Google. That comes from sthita pragya, from connecting to the spiritual platform, from connecting to that divine consciousness. The immediate symptoms of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow, as stated below. So once we start hearing about Krishna, Shravanam, then naturally Kirtanam, you start talking about Krishna. So what we don't realize that we got 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means listen twice as much as you speak. So whatever goes in through the ears will eventually spin in the mind, will become thoughts, and from thoughts it will become words. It will come out through the mouth, and then from words it will become action, activity. No activity happens without hearing, without processing, and without speaking. Those are the three preliminary stages before you get action. So very easy test. If you want to know what is somebody's state, just see what comes out of their mouth. See what they speak. If they're constantly speaking about concerns, worries, if they're constantly doing prajalpa, means they're constantly hearing prajalpa. If they're constantly talking about worries and sadness and negativity, means they're constantly thinking about this. So immediately you can understand the state that they are. They're not absorbing in the process of divine consciousness. If you're absorbed in the process of divine consciousness, it will be a process in your mind, and that's what will come out through your mouth. So very easy to find out. The spiritual master doesn't have a big job. He just looks at you, and then he sees your body language, and then he sees what's coming out of your mouth. So by the combination of that two, the body language, what's coming out of your mouth, he can immediately understand whether you are connected on the divine consciousness or not.